I'm Klee Irwin, and I direct quantum gravity research in Los Angeles. This talk is called The Quasicrystalline Nature of Consciousness in the Universe. Our mission at Quantum Gravity Research is to discover the geometric first principles unification of space, time, energy, matter, information, and consciousness. Our physicists and mathematicians have developed an E8 quasicrystal quantum gravity framework based on the golden ratio and Fibonacci chains. It holds special promise for resolving the quantum decoherence problem that stands in the way of useful quantum computing technology. It is showing a path forward in understanding low-energy nuclear reactions. But most importantly, if we are successful, this model will be the only microscopic first principles theory of everything, so it will provide an explanation for the fundamental constants, such as the speed of light. And it will dissolve the philosophy that consciousness, including universal consciousness, is in a separate realm from the geometry of reality. So our mission statement really comes down to this. We want to know what reality is from first principles. The term first principles means we want everything to be explained in simple, fundamental terms. Currently, a first principles theory of everything does not exist. String theory has not made any successful predictions, and it is not a first principles theory because it does not explain the magnitude of the speed of light or the other fundamental constants. Quantum mechanics and general relativity, on the other hand, do make good predictions, but they don't explain the fundamental constants either. So what clues does nature offer for what a first principles theory of everything should look like? I will show you 7 clues and 1 solution that embraces them all. Information, causality loops, non-determinism, consciousness, pixelation, E8 crystal, and golden ratio. Nature's clue number 1, information. Information is meaning in the form of symbolism, such as a language. For example, the subjective symbols DOG can represent the meaning of this animal here. A very different symbol is one which represents itself. Here, the symbol of a square can represent the object known as the square. Both classic and quantum theory indicate that reality is made of information. In fact, there is no evidence it is anything other than information. So a mosaic-like language of 3D geometric symbols could express the meaning of a geometric reality like ours. Quantum mechanics states clearly that the class of information is binary, which is any language with 2 symbols or states. Max Tegmark of MIT believes reality is made of mathematical symbolism. However, it is illogical to assume mathematical symbolism or any other language can exist without consciousness to assign meaning to it. I'll share our solution to that dilemma later. Nature's clue number 2, causality loops. Einstein showed how the future and past exist simultaneously in one geometric object. In 2014, scientists in Israel demonstrated that particles can be entangled over time and not just space. Daryl Bem of Cornell published rigorous evidence that retrocausality exists, where future events loop back in time to co-create past events. Obviously, the past co-creates the future. But what happens when the future also co-creates the past? An evolving feedback loop results. Like the feedback between 2 mirrors, or the mathematical feedback loop called a fractal. If every moment is co-creating every other moment, both forward and backward in time, reality is technically a neural network of information spanning space and time. This type of network would possess a strange quality. It would be self-actualized, its own creator. Nature's clue number 3, non-determinism. Prior to the 1920s, it was popular to believe in the clockwork universe idea of reality being a deterministic program playing itself out. In that view, this fish didn't choose to jump, it was just following a deterministic algorithm. The famous double-slit experiment ruled out determinism, ushering in the new paradigm of quantum indeterminism. But even without the double-slit experiment, the existence of free will rules out the clockwork universe theory. Nature's clue number 4, consciousness. John Wheeler, who coined the term black hole, said reality is made of information created by observation, by consciousness. It certainly exists in the universe, at least in us, and it relates deeply to quantum mechanics in ways not yet fully understood. The definition of information involves the perception of meaning, and meaning is a subjective, free will choice, an act of consciousness. So when one realizes that energy is pure information, it becomes clear that reality itself deeply ties into consciousness in some way, as though the fundamental stuff of reality is somehow consciousness. Did consciousness and information emerge in a causality feedback loop? Nature's clue number 5, pixelation. Werner Heisenberg developed the first equations of quantum mechanics using matrix math. He deduced that space and time were pixelated into indivisible Planck units, like a mosaic. The mathematics indicated this, and there was no solid experimental evidence for smooth space or time. This new idea was too radical for most scientists of the day, except for Niels Bohr, who agreed with Heisenberg. However, most scientists today still believe space-time is smooth and without substructure, so not pixelated. On the other hand, most agree that a length can be no shorter than the Planck length, which suggests that reality is pixelated. So clearly there's a good deal of confusion in the scientific community. I believe that until a powerful quantum gravity theory of pixelated space-time is discovered, the issue will remain confusing. So what type of binary geometric code would describe a pixelated, mosaic-like reality? Nature's clue number 6, E8 crystal. The largest and most expensive object that humans have ever built is the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. What is it? A microscope. It peers down into the subatomic realm by colliding particles together and giving us data on how they break apart. So what have we learned from 80+ years of smashing particles together? What clues has it given us? We learned that all fundamental particles and forces, including gravity, convert into one another according to the geometry of a shape related to an 8-dimensional Platonic solid. It forms a crystal structure in 8 dimensions called the E8 lattice. It's the maximum packing density of 8-dimensional spheres, and it can be built entirely of regular tetrahedra, rotated from one another into higher dimensions by a golden ratio-based angle. Nature's clue number 7, golden ratio. The golden ratio may be the fundamental constant of nature. Along with its rational form, called the Fibonacci sequence, it is ubiquitous in the universe from quantum to celestial scales. Let's explore a few examples that are just the tip of the iceberg, starting with black holes. The golden ratio is the precise point where a black hole's modified specific heat changes from positive to negative. And it is part of the equation for the lower bound on black hole entropy. The golden ratio even relates the loop quantum gravity parameter to black hole entropy. Why does this support the claim that it is the fundamental constant of nature? Because a theory of everything must unite general relativity, the theory of space and time, with quantum mechanics. And a black hole is where these two theories converge at their limits. In the case of general relativity, black holes are the maximum possible density of mass and energy. And it is where we learn something else that is very important. Reality appears to be made of binary information. The idea is known as the holographic principle, and it comes from a mathematical proof called the Maldacena conjecture. It states that the total amount of binary information from all the mass and energy pulled into a black hole is proportional to its surface area, where every 4 Planck areas of its surface encode the state of a fundamental particle that fell into it. This is interesting because the 4-term 2x2 binary matrix is the most fundamental of all matrices. 14 of its 16 possible combinations of 1s and 0s have eigenvalues that are not interesting. They are just 0, 1, or 2. But the remaining 2 eigenvalues are very interesting, with values as the golden ratio and -1 over the golden ratio. Black holes and quantum mechanics deeply relate to the golden ratio, binary information, and the number 4. Perhaps it's a clue about the missing quantum gravity theory of everything. 75% of the universe is made of hydrogen, and the basis of all atomic theory can be derived from its values. Based on the work done by Suresh and Koga in 2001, Horovska showed the atomic radius of hydrogen in methane to be the Bohr radius over the golden ratio. In 1993, Lucienne Hardy of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics discovered that the probability of entanglement for 2 particles projected in tandem is the golden ratio to the -5. The results were experimentally confirmed 3 times in peer review papers during the period from 1993 to 2009. In 2010, a multinational team of scientists found an E8-based golden ratio signature in solid-state matter. Cobalt neobate was put into a quantum critical state and tuned to an optimal level by adjusting the magnetic fields around it. The researchers used the analogy of tuning a guitar string. They found the perfect tuning when the resonance to pitch is in a golden ratio-based value specifically related to the geometry of E8. The authors speculated that the result is evidence in support of an E8-based theory of everything. Our group is publishing a new paper, a meta-study of golden ratio-based astrophysical data. Nature has given us 7 clues about a theory of everything. So what is the key to this puzzle that includes information, causality loops, non-determinism, consciousness, pixelation, E8 crystal, and the golden ratio? Our research program is focused on projecting the E8 crystal to 3D and 4D. This generates a golden ratio-based binary code of pixelated space and causality loops requiring emergent consciousness. Now that was a mouthful. Let's unpack this statement. Projecting the E8 crystal to 3D and 4D, which creates a golden ratio-based binary code of pixelated space. When you think of a crystal, such as a checkerboard, you can imagine its fundamental cell, the square. So to understand the E8 crystal, you can understand its fundamental 8-dimensional shapes. The cell shape of E8 that best represents it is the Gaussian polytope with 240 vertices. When we project this to 4 dimensions, it becomes 2 identical shapes of different sizes, like these here. The ratio of their sizes is the golden ratio. They are called 4D icosahedra, or 600 cells. And each is made of 600 regular 3-dimensional tetrahedra rotated from one another by a golden ratio-based angle. The 600 cells intersect in 7 golden ratio-based ways and kiss in one particular way to form a 4D aperiodic mosaic tiling called a quasicrystal. A quasicrystal is a code or a language. This is because the ways that you can arrange the building block geometric symbols or shapes are governed by rules, like a language. But within the rules, you must make choices that are not forced by those rules. So because it is not a deterministic or forced set of building instructions, there is freedom to create many patterns while still obeying the rules of the code. It is a language in every sense of the word. Specifically, it is a language of waves or vibrations. The 4D quasicrystal is represented in 3D, with regular tetrahedra related by golden ratio-based rotations, and looks like this. The language is binary, where tetrahedra form an invisible possibility space and are chosen to be on or off in each frame according to the language rules. Over many frozen quasicrystal frames, dynamic wave and particle-like patterns emerge that look a little like this. So in this dynamic animation, you can see that tetrahedra are flashing on and off in different frames, and as that occurs, you see group patterns emerging with wave and particle-like qualities. The other part of our mouthful sentence is this: and causality loops requiring emergent consciousness. Remember, evidence prevents us from believing in the deterministic Newtonian clockwork universe. And codes cannot be operated by randomness, or they break down and cease to generate meaning. So if reality is based on something like our E8 physics, who or what is choosing the steps in the code that require free will? It is certainly not us, because this is a code that operates down at the Planck scale. And again, randomness does not generate meaning in languages. Plus, there is no first principles explanation for randomness or even experimental evidence for it. Can a consciousness that emerges from the code be the origin of the code in the first place, making it a logically consistent causality loop? A universal collective consciousness could be the answer. But how could such a thing emerge from a universe made of information? And where would the information have emerged from in the first place? Clearly, evolutionary emergence by self-organization is how the universe works, where small and simple things self-organize into larger, emergent things. Our minds are an example of this. The power of the neural network-like universe is in its massive connectivity, both forward and backward in time. Networks harness the mathematical power of exponential growth. Let's fold this piece of paper 4 times. It's still just a few millimeters thick. How thick will it be if I folded it another 99 times for a total of 103 folds? It would be twice as big as the universe. How many combinations of friends can there be in this group of only 16 people? Over 65,000 combinations. There are no laws in physics that place an upper limit on what percentage of the universe can exponentially self-organize into free will systems like us humans. All the energy of the universe can be converted into a single conscious system that is itself a network of conscious systems. Given enough time, whatever can happen will eventually happen. By this axiom, universal emergent consciousness has happened somewhere ahead of us in space-time. Because it is possible, it is inevitable. In fact, according to the evidence of retro-causality time loops, that inevitable future is co-creating us right now, just as we are co-creating it. Our quasi-crystal unification physics program is called Emergence Theory. Our plan is to evolve these ideas from interesting conjectures into mathematically rigorous open source science.